Hello there, great person. Good evening to you, or good morning, or good day, wherever you are, whatever you do. I hope you're doing fine. Today we are doing another science reaction video, and it's as requested from C. That's a channel. Yeah, you will find the link to the original video as always in the description box below. So if you want to check it out, give them some love because they did a lot of work for this, and I'm just reacting. So yeah. Um, why did I pick this one? Because it's called Io, a hell of a moon. So it's about Io, the moon of Jupiter. And I actually wrote a horror story that incorporates Io and some of the properties it has. It will come out next year. So it's finished, but it's not going to be published soon because it links to the newest one that is going to come out in 1 or 2 weeks. And yeah, so we will watch it. I don't know a lot about you other than the things that I researched for that story. So let's just see what they've got for us and have some fun with it. And yeah, if you're new here, I'm a physicist, though not an astrophysicist. I'm a quantum physicist. So I might know some of the things they're gonna tell me today, and I will pause the video when I want to add something or elaborate on something which I think might be interesting. And yeah, so I might pause a lot if I've got a lot to say. I don't think I will today, but so if you don't like this, be warned. But let's just get into the video and have some fun, shall we? So let's see. It's gonna be the moon of hell from C, as you see here. Ooh,
Three
already.
quarters of a billion kilometres away from the Earth lies one of the most magnificent sights in the solar system, Jupiter. It is the godfather of worlds, the oldest and largest planet in the solar system.
My favorite
It's
planet.
2.5 times heavier than all of the other planets put together and can fit Earth inside over 1,000 times. This size and mass gives Jupiter a powerful influence, and this influence can be seen all over the solar system.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna say it. And you probably know it, but it's one of my favorite things about Jupiter. But there are a lot of things I love about Jupiter because I love Jupiter. This one here is the red spot. So yeah, it's a hurricane, and this hurricane is like 3 to 4 times the size of the Earth. So you would not want to go and get into it. And yeah, so yeah, he'll probably say that too. But
From the size and distribution of the rocky planets to the orbits of asteroid belts and debris.
yeah,
Around Jupiter, we've managed to identify no less than 79 moons orbiting the gas giant, more than any other planet. And of these 79 satellites, there's one place where the Godfather planet's influence is spectacularly evident:
yeah.
Io.
Oh, it's called Io. I always say Io. Yeah, by the way, what they just said with the asteroids, Jupiter protects Earth from asteroids from the asteroid belt and others because it has such a larger gravitational pull that it pulls them and towards itself, and we have less asteroids to deal with. One of the reasons we exist, probably. Yeah, the lesser worlds. Yo. Yo.
Io is a cold, scorched world. It is the most volcanically active celestial object in the solar system.
Yep, that's
probably
why.
the closest thing to
Yep.
hell you can find in our immediate vicinity of space. It
Yeah.
was discovered on the 7th of January 1610 by Galileo Galilei along with 3 other large moons of Jupiter.
Yeah.
These Galilean moons were the first moons to be discovered beyond the Earth, which in turn helped humanity to realise that the planets orbit the Sun and
Yeah.
not the other way around.
Yeah, that is, you have to imagine that that's such a great discovery. Another thing, having a moon, as the Earth does, makes us less special, but then again, this centristic worldview that they had was quite, yeah, it did not get them that far, and they were like stopping in their advancements in astronomy. So it's quite good that Galileo discovered them. So the others are Callisto, Ganymede, Io, and what's the last one? Europa. Europe. Yeah, Europa in German. So not the continent, the moon.
At the time, the moons were distinguished by the numbers 1 to 4 in Roman numerals. However, as more moons were discovered around Jupiter, it became clear that the ever-expanding numbering system would become confusing, and so we gave each of the 4 large moons names:
Yeah.
Ganymede, Callisto, Europa,
Oh, it's called
and last
Europa.
but not least, Io.
Interesting. I didn't know it was called that
Like
in English
most
as
other
well.
moons, the name comes from Greek mythology. Io was a priestess of Hera and also one of Zeus's lovers, who is said to have been turned into a cow during a marital dispute between Zeus and his wife Juno. In fact, NASA's 2011 Juno mission to Jupiter is named after her.
Oh,
This is
that's
because
great.
the Juno spacecraft peers through the clouds of Jupiter's upper atmosphere to reveal its secrets. In Greek mythology, Juno peered through the clouds to reveal her husband Zeus's, aka Jupiter in Roman mythology's, infidelity. In the last half a century, we've visited the moon and its parent many times. Pioneer 10 and 11 were the first missions to take measurements of the moon, and was followed by missions including Voyager, Cassini, and New Horizons.
Yeah. So they are quite well explored as well. And yeah, in my story, there's always also a trip to that moon by a probe. And I really like that they use the Roman mythology or the Greek mythology. I mean, they are both pretty similar. They borrowed, Romans borrowed from the Greeks, if I remember correctly. So I really like that they use that for naming. It's quite meaningful, and what you said as well. It's quite meaningful.
This has allowed us to gain a much more in-depth look into the geology, chemistry, and physics of the moon, and we now know that Io has unique properties unlike anywhere else in the solar system.
Yeah.
When these probes pointed their cameras at Io, they saw a chaotic, violent world. Io is the third largest moon of Jupiter, with a respectable diameter of 3,643 kilometers. It is the fourth largest moon in the solar system, and is slightly larger than Earth's moon. It is the innermost of the large moons, and as such it is subjected to intense gravitational pressure and heavy irradiation from its parent planet. Most large moons in the solar system are composed of silicates and water ice, but Io is composed of silicate rock, making it much more similar in composition to the rocky planets than the moons.
Yeah.
This composition also makes it the densest moon in the solar system. Its crust is about 50 kilometers thick and is tormented by massive lakes of molten silicate lava on
Yeah. I mean, look at that. That's like everything's burning. It's like the apocalypse happens every second.
the surface. This is driven by the mantle below. While
And
mostly
the
solid, it is a liquid
activity
in
is
the
so
crust.
high
This
because
gives
gravity
the moon
is
a
so
global subsurface
small.
ocean of molten silicate magma, rising up via any available route or fault from the core, which causes the surface to bulge as high as 100 meters in some places. This ocean is the source of the magma erupting onto Io's surface
Yeah.
and gathering into great lava lakes. Data from the Galileo satellite has indicated that further down, Io may have an iron-rich or iron sulfide core about 1,500 kilometers in diameter, which would give Io its own magnetic field. On the surface, Io
Yeah, so even if we got there, and it's quite a good candidate, theoretically, without the lava hell stuff, to go to perhaps settle down somewhere down the line. But yeah, because the magnetic field shields you from cosmic radiation. But yeah, because it's hell, you can't go there. I mean,
Io is extremely geologically active, but despite this constant emission of heat, the planet remains cold. This far away from the sun, its average temperature is about 110 Kelvin, because the planet lacks an atmosphere substantial enough to trap heat.
yeah,
Io's atmosphere
Not
is
enough
a very
gravity.
thin layer of sulfur dioxide as a result of the volcanic activity, with traces of sulfur monoxide, sodium chloride, and atomic level sulfur and oxygen. This atmospheric composition varies significantly depending on the time of day, latitude, and surface frost levels. It can be as weak as a third of the pressure of Earth's atmosphere, or it can be as strong as 3 times the pressure.
wow.
Extreme pressure and sub-zero temperatures aside, there are volcanoes and lava lakes dotted all over its uneven rocky terrain. The surface is constantly being reshaped by this volcanism, and Io has over 100 mountains which have been uplifted by compression at the base of Io's silicate crust. Some of these mountains are taller than Everest.
Yeah,
Of course, mountains are one thing, but what really sets Io apart from the rest of the solar system's moons are its 400 active volcanoes.
yeah. That's so, and I mean it's because of the gravity, because things can go higher, because yeah, I think I might be wrong there, but I think it's because of the gravity and so many volcanoes, like, and it's not even molten rock, it's this yeah, silicate, I think you said.
Making it one of only a handful of active moons in the solar system, and by far the most violent and extreme. Volcanoes on Io erupt lava rich in sulfur and magnesium dozens
Yeah,
of
look at
kilometers into
that.
the air, and plumes of sulfur and sulfur dioxide as
Look
high
at
as
that.
500 kilometers.
I mean, if you say this is 6,000 kilometers. I mean, what is that? 50, 70, 2,000. So this is 1,000 kilometers. Yeah. Yeah. 400 kilometers. About 400 kilometers high. I just estimated roughly, but that's so high.
These volcanic depressions are connected and joined by massive lakes of silicate lava. The largest is Lotera, which is over 200 kilometers across, 1 million times larger than any lake we have on Earth, and single-handedly responsible for 25% of all of the heat emitted by the moon.
Wow, that's so much.
With erupting mountains and vast lava flows, Io is truly a sight to behold. But why is it that this moon is so volatile and volcanic, and none of the others that we know of are? Well, to find the answer to that, you have to look beyond the moon itself. On Earth, our geological activity is driven from below. The leftover heat from the Earth's formation and radioactive decay at the core drives convection currents upwards. On Io, however, this hellish activity is driven from above, by the gravity of its parent planet.
That's so sick.
Io is constantly under pressure from Jupiter's immense gravitational and magnetic fields, and this is the source of the havoc on the surface. Io orbits Jupiter quickly.
I don't know if I like the expression, but it's probably the right expression that you use, but pressure for gravity? I know you can do that, but it's, isn't it the gravitational gradient that does this and the strength? I don't know.
Once every 42.5 hours to be exact, which is also the same amount of time it takes the moon to complete one full rotation. And so its day is the same as its year, meaning one side of the moon always faces Jupiter while the other faces out into space.
So it's tidal
locked. It is tidally locked, like many other moons. This moon around the gas giant is also the subject of a tug-of-war match between Io's neighbours
like
and its
ours,
parent.
by the way.
Io is locked into what's known as an orbital resonance with its neighbouring moons, Europa and Ganymede. Like planetary clockwork, Io completes 2 full orbits of Jupiter for every one of Europa, and 4 full orbits for every one of Ganymede. This means that every few orbits, the moons align, and the gravity of Io's neighbours pulls it out of its circular orbital alignment and into an elliptical orbit. And this means that the strength of Jupiter's gravitational influence on the moon is constantly changing, pulling on the moon's interior and squashing it. This causes
By the way, what he says, that's so cool that it's like this, they're integers, like 1 and 2 and 4, those are, that it's exactly that because that's the stable orbits of everything. That's so cool. That's so cool. And yeah, it puts quite a lot of strain on Jupiter's moons and
tidal heating. The changing gravity of Jupiter, Europa and Ganymede causes friction on Io's interior, which generates heat, raising the temperature of Io's mantle to over 1,000 degrees, which would usually be frozen. This heat melts the mantle near the surface, causing geological activity that is responsible for the many mountains, volcanoes and lava lakes on the surface. As it travels along this elliptical orbit, Io cuts across the powerful magnetic lines of Jupiter's magnetic field, meaning Io is a hive of electrical activity and radiation. The moon can create an electric current of over 3 million amps, and this causes lightning in Jupiter's upper atmosphere when the moon passes close by the planet. As the moon moves through these massive channels of radiation, these magnetic field lines rip across the surface like electromagnetic tornadoes, and the irradiation from the gas giant strips off approximately a ton of material every single second.
Yeah, by the way, magnetic field lines don't exist. I mean, they describe some action or potential action that can happen around something that is magnetic, but I mean, there are no lines. Like he's going into quite some literal territory, but I mean, of course he is. Just wanted to point it out. It's one misconception that has been found quite a lot, that you think there are real lines going somewhere. It's just, no, you describe how the space is behaving.
This displaced debris becomes ionized by the magnetic field and forms a cloud around Io, which feeds into a much larger rotating cloud of extreme radiation around Jupiter, known as a plasma torus. The ions in this cloud have inflated Jupiter's magnetosphere to over twice the size we would expect, thanks to the extra matter from Io. As the planet and Taurus rotate, some of these ions fall into Jupiter's upper atmosphere, creating brilliant and bedazzling aurorae.
Yeah.
On Earth, the northern
So
lights
cool.
are caused by solar storms hitting the planet's magnetic field lines, but Jupiter is powerful enough to create its own, as its gravity pulls charged particles inwards, creating aurorae hundreds of times more energetic than the ones we see on Earth.
Yeah. And by the way, I think, and I'm pretty sure that it's the case, that Jupiter's almost big enough to have become a star when the solar system formed. It's not big enough, but because it's so much gas and it's so much hydrogen as well in the atmosphere.
Yet another one of Jupiter's most impressive features, which is driven by its most extreme conditions. Most of what we need to know about Io was revealed by the Galileo spacecraft between 1995 and 2006, and then in 2007, New Horizons revealed the moon's surface in fantastic new detail. But because Io is so harsh and barren, it's not really a viable target for any landing missions.
Yeah.
But with that said, in 2010 and 2015, a flyby mission to Io called the Io Volcano Observer, or IVO, was proposed as the subject for NASA's 13th Discovery mission, and also the New Frontiers program. This mission would aim to investigate the impact of Io's volcanoes on the rest of the Jupiter system. Unfortunately, however, like many proposed satellite landing missions, the IVO and a similar proposed flyby mission have yet to make it past the proposal stage.
It's so bad.
What is more
But
intriguing
it's a
to
lot of money.
scientists are missions that explore the system of Jupiter as a whole, and there are multiple proposed missions to explore the Jovian satellites. But Io is of little interest to scientists compared to moons like Europa, which are predicted to have potentially life-bearing properties.
Yeah.
It goes
It's so expensive, so expensive. You have to choose, but it's unfortunate. By the way, we created an AR application where we there are models of all the planets in it and the moons. And there are many moons we don't have textures for because we've never really measured them. That's so. I mean, imagine that it's our own solar system. We don't have info about the surfaces of several bodies, several bodies.
without saying that Io's conditions make it a very unlikely spot for any sort of life. Io is, in all likelihood, a lifeless, troubled world, irradiated and scorched well beyond the habitable threshold.
It would be a great place
In
for a
fact,
prison in
these extreme
sci-fi.
conditions have made Io a feature in numerous instances of popular culture, with a long list of appearances in video games, from Halo to Destiny 2. It was also the subject of a film on Netflix released just last year with said name, about a space station of surviving humans on Io after the atmosphere of Earth has become toxic.
Interesting.
In reality, Io's surface conditions make it perhaps one of the least well-suited environments for human colonies.
Yeah.
If we needed to escape the Earth and form a colony around Jupiter, many have proposed another of the Galilean moons as a prime target, the only one we haven't mentioned today, Callisto.
Oh, I thought it was
While
Ganymede.
Callisto's conditions are deemed to be less favourable to the emergence of life than Europa's, it is the least affected of the four large moons by the radiation of its parent planet, and so a milder environment may be the best place for a human or remote presence for the exploration of the system in the future. For Io, however, it likely won't be the focus of a landing mission anytime soon, if ever. We will continue to peer in from the safety of space, as nothing
Yeah,
would be able
better-
to survive
better
on
do
that
that.
barren and ravaged moon. As for the survival prospects on the other large moons of Jupiter, well, that's a question for another day.
Yeah. Okay. This one looks interesting as well. Well, I might do that next. I don't know. If it's quite long, so I don't want to bore you, but yeah. Well, that was cool. It was very good. Very good, very good, very good. I like your, as I said, because it's this hellish world, and the color is so strange and so muddy and yeah. I mean, this was not solely a video on Io, it was also a video on Jupiter, and you saw some of the effects Jupiter, or the properties Jupiter has, which I love. I mean, it's my favorite planet in the solar system because it's so extreme. Like the spot, like that it is gas, that it consists of gas mostly, so it's not really solid that much, and it's so big, and I love it. I love Jupiter. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this little, watching of this video. I mean, I did not input that much today, but it was a good video. It's more like I learned more than, it's just not on principle, but I learned new facts, and I really like the Jupiter, the Jupiter moons, and so. Let's see what we do next week. I might do the supernova one if you're interested. If you have others, let me know. And I hope that you have a very great evening and see you soon. Bye.